And welcome back to The Watchman from Washington, D.C. We're with our CUFI All-Star panel, Ari Morgenstern, Boris Zilberman, two of our top policy experts at Christians United for Israel. And when I think of anti-Semitism, anti-Israel, anti-American activity, I think of the Iranian regime first and foremost. Now, we've been talking here on the show how they've been trying to entrench themselves on the Golan Heights on Israel's border. President Trump made a very important announcement recently regarding the Golan, Boris. What did he say, and why is it so important?
Look, I think it's a critical move where the Trump administration recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, which has been the fact on the ground for over 50 years there, where after Israel fought 2 wars of survival against the Syrians and the Egyptians and other folks in the area as well, but mainly the Syrians and the Golan Heights. So it's key for keeping Israel making sure they have defensible borders. That is, if anybody has stood on the plateau of the Golan Heights, it's pretty clear why it's important for Israel to maintain and defend, and why for anybody that wants to have a successful attack on Israel.
It's the high ground, right, Boris? It's the strategic high ground. Yeah, we've spent a lot of time there here on the show. Every few months, it seems, we're in the Golan Heights, and folks, you see the map there as well. This is indispensable for Israel's security.
Indispensable, and it sends the right message to America and Israel's enemies, whether it's the Iranians, the jihadi groups in Syria, the Russians, etc., that the United States stands with its most important ally in the Middle East.
Ari, how did the Iranians receive this announcement? Is this a game changer for Iran's plans in the region, specifically in Syria, in that Golan region?
Well, I think the Iranians received the announcement as one would expect. They were none too thrilled. Iran's plans for the region, and it goes beyond Syria. You know, obviously they're involved in Yemen and elsewhere. I think Iran, with their economic problems, I think that they're kind of, I wouldn't say they're in retreat, but they've been pushed back, I think is the best way to put it. And I think that some of that comes from policy. For example, what Boris was just speaking about, recognizing Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights sends that message. And part of it comes from Israeli action that they've taken to ensure, for example, that Hezbollah doesn't get sophisticated weapons. Sometimes that's kinetic action, that sometimes is the requirement.
I mean, major action over the past few years.
That's right.
We've seen some major flare-ups between Iran and Israel, even directly in Syria.
That's right. And I think that the Iranians, they have an eye on becoming the regional hegemon. They want to be the regional power, and they want to wipe Israel off the map. And I think
they mean it.
They mean it. And when someone says that they want to wipe Israel off the map, when someone says they're coming to kill you, you take them seriously.
If the 20th century taught us anything,
exactly right.
It taught us that.
And I think that the Iranians now are going to have to come to terms with a simple fact. The days in which they are appeased, the days in which we will sit down and dine with them at the table to try to give them something that they want in order to get a scintilla of we want, those days are over. The United States has made very clear, not just to the Iranians, but around the world, that our enemies should fear us and our allies should know that we will stand with them. And that fundamental shift in American foreign policy, borne out in our position on the Golan Heights, borne out in the recognition of Jerusalem, and borne out in myriad ways, I think that that is the key message the Iranians are going to have to hear and going to have to listen to.
This message of strength and support for Israel coming from the U.S. administration right now, how does that affect the Sunni Arab nations, Egypt, the Saudis, the Gulf states, the Jordanians, who are also threatened by this growing Iranian superpower and very concerned about it?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The Saudis, the Egyptians, the Sunni nations, they see Iran and its regional ambitions as the preeminent threat in the region. As a result, I don't think it's a secret to say that they've had quiet communications at the intelligence level and such with the Israelis. Yeah. And they see now in America a president that is willing to stand up and say, I recognize the enemy, I know what the enemy is, and I will stand with those who will stand with the United States as we confront that enemy.
Boris, you're here in D.C. Some call this place the swamp. Interesting things happen here, to say the least. You're here in D.C. You have your ear to the ground working for us here in D.C. for CUFI. What's the reaction been here in D.C. circles to President Trump's much more forceful approach to the Iranian regime?
Look, I think it's paying dividends in the fact that once the Trump administration withdrew from the JCPOA, from the Iran deal, and reverted back the sanctions that were on before the Iran deal, that they've moved forward with their maximum pressure campaign. You've seen the Iranian economy take a big hit. Their GDP is at a -6, so it is, in which that's the worst globally currently out of kind of major nations.
That's a big deal. So the people are feeling it.
The people are feeling it. Inflation is through the roof in Iran. How does that translate to, the region is when they're sending money to Hezbollah, to other proxy groups in Syria or in Yemen, it's going to be a bigger chunk of their budget. Yeah. Their economy is hurting because of these sanctions.
Guys, it's such a dramatic sea change in policy from the Obama administration to the Trump administration when it comes to Iran. Clearly, gifting the Iranian regime with billions of dollars in sanctions relief did not work. It only emboldened them. So it seems like a very good idea to me, as you two have lined out, to change course and exert maximum pressure on this regime, which not only seeks the destruction of Israel, but the destruction of the great Satan, as they call it, the United States as well. Well, coming up after the break, we're taking it from the political realm here in Washington, D.C., to the spiritual realm and the hunt for an elusive ancient scroll that could help unlock some legendary biblical mysteries. Folks, you will not want to miss this. Stick around.